The case is here again, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do that before we get started, because you don't want to miss out on any of my tutorials anymore. And today I'll be making a tutorial on how to make a princess gown. It is very easy to make. Before I made a tutorial on a princess dart and also basic bodice pattern, in which I'll put the link in the description below for you to understand the basics and the rudiments. So now let's get started. First, I will put the video tutorial on basic bodice pattern and princess dance, in which I have done before, in the description box below. So if you watch that, it will make you understand more about the basic bodice pattern and the princess dance. So now today I'll be making a gown, and this is like a basic bodice pattern for a gown. If you've watched my previous tutorial, you will understand all this. So my vertical measurement, which is from here to the chest line, was 8.5. This is my bust point line, which is 10.5. My waist, which is 16, vertically, which is 16. And also my hip, that is from the nape of your neck to your hip, my whole measurement is 24. And from my hip down to where I want my skirt to end, which is 37, and 1 inch seam allowance. So now, having done that, I also inserted my horizontal measurement, like my bust measurement divided by 4 plus half an inch is 11 inches. And for my waist, it is 36 divided by 4 gave me 9. And for my hip measurement, which is 44 divided by 4 gave me 11. And then for the lower part, all you have to do is minus 1 or 1.5 inch from your divided hip measurement. Like here I have 11. So for the lower part where my gown will end, I'll just minus 1. So I'll be measuring 10 on where my gown stops. But if you are someone that is curvy, that has much hips, you could minus 1.5. But you have to understand your body structure. So now let's start with the princess dart. So first I'll start by imputing my bust span measurement. Bust span is from the measurement from one nipple to another divided by 2. Mine is 9 divided by 2, that is 4.5. Then because I've been drafting directly on my fabric, I'll add half an inch for sewing allowance, so that will make it 5. So from my bust point, I will mark 5 inches downward all through on my waistline, on the hip line, and then where my gown will stop. 5 inch here and 5 inch here. So having done that, I will now start with my armhole dart. So here, all you have to do is to just measure from the edge of your shoulder, measure all through. So here I have 10. So I will divide it by 2, which will give me 5. So 5 is here, but I'll have to come down by 1 inch to make it 6. Why? Because I need half inch for sewing allowance and then half inch for the dart I will cut off. So that was why I came in by 1 inch. So now, having done that, I'll just draw a straight line from this point to my bust point. That's the straight line. After doing that, then I'll measure half an inch on both sides, which will be my dart, and also here. So also, if you've watched my previous video, I always advise to come up by 1 inch. It is by choice and not compulsory. This is just to ease the area around your bust. So if I want to come up by 1 inch, that will be this. Then I will join to the dart. So now, at this lower line, you have to extend this line by 1 inch, because here we have half an inch. So we have to extend this line by 1 inch. Why? Because after joining your princess dart, that is the side panel and the middle panel, you don't want to have any shortage here. So that is the reason why you have to come up by 1 inch. So this is where my 1 inch stops, and then I will create a new hole. that is the new armhole. So having done that, then I will come to my waist area to impute my dart. So here you can also do 1/2 inch on both sides. From the 5-inch bust span measurement, you can do 1/2 inch on both sides, but here I'll be doing 1 inch because I want my bust area to be more prominent. So here now I will just 1 inch here, 1 inch here, and that is it. Also here also I advise to come down by 1 inch, but it is totally optional. As I've said, that it just eases the area around the bust. So this is coming down by 1 inch, and then I will join the lines. So that is it, and this way. So having done that, can you see our princess is formed? Then I'll use my French curve to blend it up. Can you see that? You could use a free hand also. Can you see the princess that is formed? So now let's go to the hip area. So now this is the 5-inch measurement. Just draw a straight line this way to join the other 5-inch point. So now also from my previous video, I advise to always come up by 1 inch or 2 inch or 1 1/2 depending on what you want. So now I'll be coming up by, let's say, 1 1/2. So after doing that, I'll just join it to the dart on the waist. That is it. And all you have to do at the lower part is just join this straight line down to the bottom of your gown, and your princess that is finished. Can you see that? So now let's now go to the measurement, because we took some dart here and we have to take it back to that side. And also after cutting out this middle part, we need sewing allowance of 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here to sew it up, so making 1 inch. So we are going to add this 1 inch also to the measurement over there. So let's start from the bust area. Like from here, I took 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here, so this is 1 inch. So I have to add this 1 inch back to this place, so that is 1. Then also 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here to sew it together, making 2, because 1/2 inch plus 1/2 inch is 1 inch, so making 2. Then also I will need seam allowance to sew my cloth. That will make it 3. So that means I'll be adding 3 inches to my original measurement, which is here. So now let's go to the waist. For the waist, I took 1 inch here, 1 inch here, making 2 inches. Then I need 1/2 inch to sew this, 1/2 inch to sew this, making 3 inches. And then for my seam allowance to sew this, making 4. So that means I'll be adding 4 to my original measurement. So now for the hip area. So for the hip, all I need is, after cutting here, I need 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here, which is 1. Then plus sewing allowance, making 2. So I'll be adding 2 inches to the original measurement. And then for the lower part, I need 1 inch, 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here, making 1 inch plus sewing allowance. That will make it 2 inches. So, and that is it on the princess dart. So now we'll be joining our dots. So from the bust area to the waist area, this way. And then from the waist to the hip, I'll use my hip curve. If you don't have a hip curve, you could use freehand or just use your roller to do that. So after doing that, because when you sew this, so this will come in more, so your hip will be more prominent. So then on the waist, if you are curvy, if you are a very, very curvy person, you could use this, the end of this hip curve, to join this area. But if you are just a person that is not a curvy person, just use a ruler to join this up, and then end up that area, and then here, and we are through. So all we have to do now is to cut out. Make sure you don't have any sharp edges. And then the armhole area. Note this that is going off. So what I'll do is just pull it away, then continue with my armhole. And this is the seam allowance for the upper part. So I'll cut off my neck. So I haven't cut off all this. In the middle part. Then this dart is also going off. Make sure you don't have any sharp edges. So this is the side panel. Can you see that? That is the side panel. So let's finish up the middle panel. So now we're going to cut off the dart. So the dart is going off. Don't forget the armhole dart. So let me show you all. And this is the princess dart gown for the front panel. Can you see that? So when you join this, all you have to do is join this with the half-inch dart. That is the princess dart gown for the front panel. So now we move to the back panel. So for the back panel, first you have to leave your 1-inch seam allowance before you starting your measurement. You don't want to make that mistake. So 1-inch seam allowance, which is this, and from there I started my measurement. Like this is my chest line. So my bust divided by 4 plus half an inch, which is this. Then all I will do is add 1-inch seam allowance to it, which is this. And also I'll go to my waist. My waist is 9 inches plus, I'll be having half an inch dart on both areas, so making 1 inch. So I'll have to add that to the 9 inch, making 10. Then plus 1 inch sewing allowance, that will make it 11. Note, you should start measuring from after the 1 inch seam allowance. You don't want to make that mistake. So I added 2 inches to my waist measurement because of the sewing allowance and the dart allowance of 2 inches. And to my hip, I have 11, then plus 1 inch sewing allowance, that will make it 12. So I'll add extra. And note, I only added sewing allowance. Also, after cutting the princess dart, we need 1 inch sewing allowance also, as I've explained in the front panel. So after cutting out the darts, which is half inch, making 1 inch, you need also another half inch here, half inch here to sew it together all through. So we need to add that to our measurement. So I've added my sewing allowance to this. So again, I'll add the 1 inch for joining the side panel with the middle panel, which is here. And also for the waist, I will add, and also for the hip, I will add. And for where the gown will stop, I will also add 2 inches to it, that is 1 inch for sewing allowance and 1 inch for sewing this hole. So I will add 2 inches to it. So that is that. So let's go to the princess dart. So now from my from my previous basic bodice pattern, I advise from the chest line to always come down by 1 inch or half an inch depending on what you want, so which I have done. So now I'll just make the dart at the waist, that is half inch here, half inch here, and then I will connect. And also here. After doing that, then for my hip, I also advise to always come on by 1 inch, also for the back pattern. Then I'll also join that to the waist dart. And then we are done for the dart. Just here, all you have to do at the armhole area, just measure it. So here I have 9. So 9 divided by 2 will give me 4.5. 4.5. This is 4.5. But I will come down by half an inch, because since I'm not taking out any dart from here, so all I'll just do is come down by half an inch for the sewing allowance. So that will make it 5. So from here, I will just take my French curve and then join to the point here. Or you could use a free hand, whatever way you like that. So and that is it for the back panel. Then we can cut off. So don't forget to join the sides. Then for the hip area, you could use your straight ruler if you don't have a hip curve, and then hold down. And now we can cut. Make sure you don't have sharp edges. So now, just go through the armhole, and then I'll cut off the neck. And then the seam allowance, don't forget that. So you can just cut open the seam allowance. So now you have to cut the middle panel, starting from the bottom. So this dart is going off. And then cut all the darts. Make sure when you are cutting yours, you are patient and calm. And that is it. So now let me show you all.